Do you need help with marketing, new clients, or online reviews? Massage Book is your solution, streamlining all the challenging aspects of your massage therapy practice. This powerful software simplifies scheduling, payments, and marketing, allowing you to focus on what you do best, helping clients live better. Plus, sign up now with code ABMP50 and get $50 off after your free 30-day trial. Visit massagebook.com, create an account, and transform your practice today. That's Massage Book with code ABMP50 for $50 off. Don't wait. Give it a shot today. Introduce your clients to MyCo Clinic, a new pain relief powerhouse for musculoskeletal pain relief. MyCo Clinic topical pain relief products are the first to combine the anti-inflammatory benefits of functional mushrooms, including reishi, lion's mane, cordyceps, and shiitake, with proven analgesics, menthol, and camphor. Our ingredients work synergistically to offer deeply penetrating, rapid relief. MyCo Clinic is available as an ointment, cream, oil, and roll-on, available exclusively to healthcare practitioners. Get your free 10-pack sample of MyCo Clinic ointment by visiting myco-clinic.com/get-free-samples.
Hi there, ABMP listeners. I'm Angie Parris-Raney, a licensed massage therapist and Chopra certified in meditation, Ayurveda, and lifestyle coaching. I'm also the director of strategic partnerships for ABMP. And you're listening to the ABMP Podcast, a podcast that speaks to the massage and bodywork community. As a fellow massage therapist who's had a part-time practice for more than 20 years, I wanted to bring to you conversations about self-care. Like you, I've experienced the highs and lows of being a professional caregiver. I know from personal experience how easy it is to lose your way and forget about your own self-care. The world needs healing now more than ever, and it's vital that we look to ourselves first to care for our own bodies, hearts, and minds so that we can show up and be our best selves for others. Today, I'm being joined by another one of my heroes, Mary McEvilly-Hernandez, who happens to be both my personal coach and is my Chopra mentor coach. After growing increasingly uncomfortable in corporate America, Mary built a coaching practice in 2011 to help her clients live and work from their hearts as well as from their heads. Her clients find that self-awareness and self-acceptance open the door to personal and professional transformation. Mary is a master certified and professional coach. She trained and certified with Martha Beck Inc. and was recruited, trained, and certified as a Chopra coach in 2017. She's an instructor and mentor for both the Chopra Coaching Certification program and the Martha Beck Inc. Wayfinder Coach Training program. She's bilingual, working with clients globally in both English and Spanish. Originally from Chicago, she and her family live between Arizona and Mexico. She loves mentoring new coaches, coaching executives, and those with blended families and others who are blessed with children with special needs. Oh my gosh, Mary, this is such a thrill to be here with you having a conversation about coaching. And just reflecting on my journey with Chopra Coaching, you were one of our cohorts mentor coach, and you created and held such a beautiful, loving, safe space for us to learn and practice as a whole new skill set. So thank you so much for joining me here today.
You're so welcome as one of our star students. I'm happy to be here.
What I didn't know was going to happen during our training was having our own personal experience of being coached and how that experience would fundamentally shift the way how I now navigate through the world. So this is why I'm so excited to bring this to the rest of the massage therapy community. So let's just dive into explaining to our listeners what's the difference between coaching and then like counseling or psychotherapy.
Well, there are a few places where we like to make distinction, right? There's the difference between a coach and a therapist, a coach and a teacher, a coach and a mentor, all different. A lot of people come into coaching thinking that it's about talking about their personal life and giving suggestions and helping people in that way. And a coach is really just someone who supports and guides individuals on their own path to self-discovery. We help them to identify maybe their personal or professional or both goals, work through obstacles, and empower them to really achieve their highest potential. We're the guide by the side, right? We're not necessarily the person doing the teaching.
So in the Chopra coaching model, it's rooted in meditation because we all know that that's where everything begins. We need to first ground ourselves and just tap into that conscious awareness. So when we look at the Chopra model of coaching, it follows 4 different cornerstones: intention, purpose, meaning, and shadow. And then the coaches sort of take us on a journey, asking ourselves these soulful questions. So when we look at, I think most of us can kind of understand what intention and purpose are. And when you think about our listeners, I feel like most massage therapists feel like we've landed on our purpose. But for the purposes of creating transformation in our lives, that's when we get into the meaning and the shadows. So talk to me a little bit about what that is and how does that foster the real work?
Sure. So yeah, those 4 cornerstones you can identify them in different ways, but we look at purpose as identifying who you are, like what inspires you, what's your legacy. We then look at intention, which is what do you really want? And that helps to step you toward who you want to be, how you want to show up. Now, what stops us typically from getting to those places that we want to be, we find, is meaning and shadow. And that's why we take you through those secondarily. And those are 2 skills that will help someone to let go of what's holding them back via limiting beliefs and stories that we tell ourselves. So it's real mindset work. And shadow helps you to identify some parts of yourself that maybe you're not too happy with and that you try to push away and hide, and helps you to incorporate those shadow parts of you to become whole. And when we show up whole, we know who we are and we know what we want. We're better able to move past those limiting beliefs that we find in the meaning cornerstone.
So I think about the coaching process and what you taught us, where one of the things I think massage therapists, when we're in a session with somebody, we might ask, like what's going on and talk to us about, what's your pain or what's going on in your life. What might be some other kinds of questions if we were to just sort of take the concept of how a coach approaches a client and teases information out and kind of gets to the root of maybe what they don't even know is going on? Like, help us frame some questions there, if you will.
Well, it's all based on the premise that the client is driving. Let's use a metaphor of a car, right? The car is the client's life, and the client is driving the car. The coach in this case, maybe even the therapist in this case, is driving next to them, right? And we see our clients as whole, resourceful, and creative. There's nothing broken in our clients because coaches should be working with people who are healthy, right? Mentally healthy. And so if they're the ones that, if we see them that way, there's no suggestion we can give them that's ever going to be right for them or better for them than what they can do with on their own. So we're always guiding the client back to their own inner wisdom. So the questions are open-ended, and we send it back to the client to help the client to either go further or deeper to look for the answers that they're looking for. So those questions are always open-ended. They're not yes/no questions. They are, what might that look like? If it could be any way that you'd like it to be, what would that be? What's getting in your way, right? What stands between you and where you'd like to go? We're always sending it back. And you've asked the right question if the client says, what a great question. Because we're not used to that. Most people outside of that environment are used to people when you pose a question or an issue saying, oh, you know what I would do? Oh, why don't you do this? Or, oh, I have 5 suggestions, right? And what psychology shows us and what research shows us is that people don't follow our suggestions. They may shake their head and smile and go, oh, great idea. But that usually doesn't come to fruition. So we like to help the client to find those answers with questions like the ones that I gave you.
Yeah, and I think that really translates well, especially when I think about massage therapists who, to some degree, we're supposed to be a little bit of an expert in educating our clients. Maybe we're the ones who know a little bit more about anatomy and physiology, maybe a little bit more about the pathology that's going on, and we can educate them. So we kind of shift into that role as an educator, if you will. And then I think some of the challenge that massage therapists have with their clients going home is, like, here's a suggested treatment protocol. Here's what I recommend. But if they were to weave maybe a little bit of these, I guess, let's just call them empowering questions here, where we're putting the power back into the client and offering like, well, what do you think would be helpful? Or what does your schedule look like? Where do you think that you could fit this in? Maybe shifting that conversation a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. That can change it up quite a bit, again, because people are used to us throwing answers at them all the time. And so maybe when you try this, check in on how it feels to you before you go to the next step, right? And then they can report back to you the next time. Yeah, I felt that. I didn't like what that felt like. And make them part of the conversation, right? Because it is their life, it is their body, and they're the ones who are going to be able to tell you once really if it's working or not.
Let's take a short break to hear a word from our sponsors. Anatomy Trains will be holding our flagship Anatomy Trains Structural Integration ATSI training in beautiful Vancouver starting September 16th, 2024. Progressively build your anatomical knowledge, hands-on manual therapy techniques, and most importantly, seeing and understanding postural patterns and developing strategies tailored to individual needs. We warmly invite you to apply today and bring your bodywork career to the next level. Visit anatomytrains.com for more. Let's get back to our conversation.
So something else I kind of want to weave into this conversation here is I'm just very passionate about self-care for the massage therapist, because if they're not taking care of themselves, like, you cannot show up and be your whole self and be present for your client. So when I think about some of these empowering questions that we've been trained to learn, like breaking down the barriers, the stories that we tell ourselves, for me, I think that's just, when I went through the coaching curriculum, just having a little bit more of that language really even set me up to challenge my own self when I pause and I stop and I hear what the thoughts, or I hear what the story or the narrative is that I'm making up in my mind. So what might be some empowering questions that we as healers could maybe ask ourselves when we start to feel a little bit of a burnout, or maybe there's a little bit of exhaustion as you're, finishing up with one client and going into the next? Like, what suggestions might you have?
Well, these are really life questions that as a coach, I've learned to weave into my life. So many things that I learned as a coach, I now weave into my life. And so I know I'm off track personally when I can feel it in my body, right? So I can feel a disconnect. I can feel maybe some pressure in my chest or a knot in my stomach. And those are my red flags, right? So you want to be looking for those. And when you feel those, you want to identify what emotion is attached to those, because there's almost always an emotion attached. That's what the body's doing. It's trying to speak to you, and it's trying to tell you about something that you're pushing away or repressing that you need to know about, right? So that's what emotions are. They're energy and motion in the body. So when I feel that, I ask myself, what emotion am I feeling? And I just ask myself. Sometimes I get an answer and sometimes I don't. But the message that I'm sending to my brain is that it's okay to feel this emotion, right? Whatever it is. If I can identify what emotion it is, I want to know what's causing that emotion. So if I feel a pit in my stomach and I have just looked at my calendar and I saw something that I need to do that maybe I don't necessarily want to do, but wasn't aware that I didn't want to do it, right? I'll ask myself, what's the emotion? The emotion is fear. Well, what's the fear about? This is like self-coaching 101, right? Fear is that, I have to go to the doctor. I really don't want to go to the doctor. I'll ask myself, what am I afraid of? I'm afraid of whatever it is, right? And so now I'm aware. Now it's in my awareness. And when you can feel that emotion and sit in it for a minute, right, it allows you to know what the next right question is to ask. So self-awareness is at the key of all of this, but there's little flags that will help us to start that process.
I love what you were reminding, even me as a body worker here, right? It's just, sometimes we still get into our heads, even when we're doing this physical body work, and not even remembering to check in with our own self, to tune into our own body and to connect to that. So yeah, that's beautiful. Just reminding us to connect with our own whole self too as we enter a session with the client. What is the most rewarding part of the work that you do as a coach?
I think when we learn things that are helpful to us, we kind of want to shout them from the rooftop. I know when I first left coach training many years ago, I thought everybody needed coaching. I was convinced. Unfortunately, not everybody thinks the same, right? They don't understand what a coach is. They're not ready to be vulnerable, whatever it is. But what I love is when I interface with someone, and clients are usually those people who are interested in personal growth, people who are looking for a way to feel better and find relief. When I can interface with people like that and almost like reprove to myself that this is a real deal, this is something that can really help people, and I watch it happen and unfurl before my eyes, it just reconfirms for me and validates that this is something that will help others and could ultimately save the world. And I know that sounds like really big, like a really big thing, but I believe that, if I can help one person and they can take that home and they can reflect that in their families, and their families can take that out and further and further and further. And if there's thousands and thousands of people doing what I'm doing, I think we can tilt the scales. Deepak talks about getting 1 billion people to meditate. If we can get 1 billion people as self-aware as you become when you start to meditate, things will shift in the world.
Absolutely. Yeah, love that mission. We could all be more consciously aware of observing our environment, tuning into our body, and having I like the word that you brought up earlier too, vulnerability. That's something that's very scary for us to be brave enough to do. And if we can have that courage, it's almost like once we step into that vulnerability, it breaks down the walls and we almost invite others in, because it's that moment where it's like, oh, I see you. I'm that too. So yeah, beautiful. Let's just kind of land here then. If there was one empowering self-inquiry question you would like to challenge our listeners with, what would it be?
Well, it's interesting because if you ask people what empowerment means to them, you're going to get different answers. So I'm not sure that there's one, but I think in that self-inquiry place of what do I really want? And that can shift and change. We don't have to have one general answer to that. Like people talk about purpose, like they have to have one purpose. Our purpose shifts, and so does our intention. So today, what do I most need to show up and feel as good as I can possibly feel? That's really all it is, right? We don't have to get too grandiose about it. We want to move through the day in order to serve ourselves, what we believe in, and other people in this healing area that we're in, right? All of us. But if we're not okay, nobody else is going to benefit as much as they can possibly benefit unless we are grounded and feeling good.
Beautiful. I would also add to this, just because, Mary, you taught us this in our cohort. One of the biggest questions too is why? Why? That's how you kind of keep getting down to that deeper level of, I like even when we're talking about intention and purpose. Well, why do you want to do that? Okay. And then whatever that is, well, why do you want to do that? And we kind of keep getting down a little, peeling back that onion, if you will, and getting down to the core root of something. So I just want to impart to the rest of the listeners that was a really cool lesson that I learned personally from Mary. So just want to share that with the world. So listeners, if you'd like to learn more about Mary McEvilly-Hernandez, you can visit her website, imaginelifedesign.com. Or if you're curious about any of the Chopra curriculums through the Institute of Integrative Nutrition, just visit chopra.com. You can also follow daily meditations through the Chopra app, available for download in the Apple Store. Mary, thank you so much for your time with us here today. It's truly been a pleasure and an honor to spend time with you.
Thanks. It was an honor to be here with you and talk about this field that I love so much, and I love how it intertwines with yours. So thanks a lot for inviting me, Angie.